In the book of Genesis, there is a story so violent, so absolute, that it has haunted the imagination for thousands of years. Two cities on a fertile plain, a people said to have fallen into wickedness. And then, from the sky, fire and burning sulfur, raining down until nothing was left but smoke rising from the ground, like smoke from a furnace. The cities were Sodom and Gomorrah, and for most of history, they existed only on the page. A moral warning, a legend, a place no map could find. But what if one of them was real? What if, beneath the soil near the Dead Sea, archaeologists had found a city that truly burned? On the northern edge of the Dead Sea, in the southern Jordan Valley, there is a great mound called el-Hammam. It does not look like much at first, a low, dusty hill rising from the plain. But beneath it lies one of the largest Bronze Age cities ever found in the region. For its time, it was enormous. Mud brick walls and towers, homes that may have risen several stories. A thriving settlement that had stood for centuries, commanding the fertile land around it. And then, around 1,650 years before Christ, it was destroyed. Suddenly and completely. Excavations began here in 2005, led by archaeologist Stephen Collins. Year after year, his team dug into the mound, and what they uncovered was strange. There was a layer, a dark band running through the ruins, thick with ash and shattered debris. Above it, the city was gone. Below it, life had flourished. The layer marked a single moment of destruction, and whatever caused it had been ferocious. The mud bricks at the top of the walls had simply vanished. The pottery showed signs of intense heat. And after the city fell, the land around it appears to have been abandoned for centuries. Something had not only destroyed Tall el-Hammam, it had left the whole region empty. To some researchers, this was more than an ordinary catastrophe. Cities are burned in war. They are leveled by earthquakes. But the evidence here, they argued, pointed to something far stranger. Something that came not from the earth, but from the sky. And so in September of 2021, a team of scientists published an extraordinary claim. It would make headlines around the world. Their proposal was breathtaking. Tall el-Hammam, they said, had been destroyed by a cosmic airburst, an asteroid or comet that exploded in the air above the city before it ever struck the ground. They compared it to Tunguska, the explosion that flattened hundreds of square miles of Siberian forest in 1908. But this, they claimed, was even larger. A blast in the sky with the force of 1,000 atomic bombs. The published description was apocalyptic. Air temperatures, they wrote, rose above 3,600 degrees. Clothing and wood burst into flame. Swords, mud bricks, and pottery began to melt. And almost instantly, the entire city was on fire. The evidence they presented seemed to fit. Tiny spheres of melted rock, shocked quartz, the kind formed under immense pressure, pottery whose surface had turned to glass, elevated levels of salt, which they suggested had been scattered across the land by the blast, poisoning the soil and driving people away for generations. It was a vivid, terrible picture. A great city, gone in an instant beneath a fireball brighter than the sun. And then the researchers pointed to something else, to a story, to Genesis. The parallels were hard to ignore. An ancient city on the plain near the Dead Sea. A sudden destruction from above. fire falling from the sky, stone and earth scorched, a land left desolate. The team was careful in their wording. They did not claim to have found Sodom, but they suggested that an event like this, witnessed, remembered, passed down through generations, could have become the seed of the biblical account, that the story of Sodom might be the distant echo of a real catastrophe. The world took notice. The story went viral. News outlets everywhere carried it. From the Smithsonian to major papers across Britain and beyond, the headline wrote itself. Science had found the destruction behind Sodom. For millions, it was the perfect story. Ancient scripture and modern discovery meeting in a single dramatic moment. But in the world of science, a bold claim invites a hard look. And almost immediately, other researchers began to examine the evidence for themselves. What they found would unravel everything. The criticism came quickly, and from many directions. Geologists questioned the melted minerals and the shocked quartz, arguing the evidence had been misread, that ordinary processes could explain what the team had seen. Physicists challenged the heart of the claim. The comparison to Tunguska, they showed, rested on errors, overestimates of the temperatures, the wind speeds, the very force of the blast. The numbers, they argued, simply did not hold. Others raised harder questions still, about the methods, about how the data had been gathered and interpreted. One commentary after another, the doubts piled up, until the paper had drawn more criticism than almost any other of its kind. For years, the dispute simmered. The journal placed a note on the paper, warning readers that concerns were under review. Behind the scenes, editors weighed the mounting objections against the author's defense. And then, in April of 2025, they reached a decision. The paper was retracted. The journal stated that the claims of an airburst were not sufficiently supported by the data, that they no longer had confidence the conclusions were reliable. The most famous version of the Sodom story science had ever offered had been formally withdrawn. But the story does not end there, because the authors did not concede. Many of them strongly disagreed with the retraction. They argued that a small group of critics had set out to silence the work, to stifle a legitimate scientific debate. And they vowed to publish the findings again, with new data, insisting the evidence would stand. So the question of what destroyed tall el-Hammam remains open, fiercely, bitterly contested, not settled by the headlines that announced it, nor by the retraction that pulled it back. And beneath that argument lies an older question, one that was never truly answered at all. Was tall el-Hammam even Sodom? That claim has been challenged by mainstream scholars and biblical literalists alike. The location, the dating, the identification, all are disputed. Many archaeologists doubt the connection entirely. The link between this mound and the city of Genesis remains, at best, unproven. So what do we truly know? We know that a real city stood here, on the plain near the Dead Sea. We know that it was large and prosperous and old. We know that it was destroyed, violently and all at once, and that the land lay empty for a long time after. What we do not know is how. Whether by war or earthquake or fire from the sky, the cause is still uncertain. And whether this was the city Genesis called Sodom is uncertain too. Perhaps that is fitting. The story of Sodom has always lived at the edge of what we can prove, between the page and the ground, between memory and evidence. The mound still stands above the plain, holding its ash and its silence. The scientists still argue. And the ancient story still waits, as it has for thousands of years, for an answer that may never fully come. If you'd like to keep searching with us through the places where history and scripture meet, subscribe and tell us which mystery we should uncover next.